All right, it is 5 after 6. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to be mindful of everybody's time tonight, especially our officers who are here tonight. For those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting in person, my name is Russ Bradford. I am the councilman for District 13, this area, so I thank you for spending your evening with me tonight. Tonight's agenda, I'm just going to give a brief update on some stuff I've been working on in the district, some legislation that's coming through council that may impact the district. And then I'm going to hand it over to, we've got representatives from both Hermitage and South Precincts, because both precincts cover District 13. I've asked them to kind of provide an update on crime and homeless activity in the area that they've been working on. We also have Sergeant Weaver, who is our new Community Affairs Liaison for Hermitage. And then I have a representative from the Homeless Impact Division who will also speak to what it is their program does and any projects that they may be working on in this area or any areas of interest. So with that, I do also want to acknowledge we do have, it's Aisha Miles? Yes. She is a candidate for Circuit Court? Chancery Court. So if you're not aware, next year we'll be having elections for all the county seats. So all the judges are up for election and sheriff is up for election as well. So I want to thank you for coming tonight, and I'll give you, I'll allow you a couple of moments to kind of introduce yourself to everybody if you want to come up here and speak for a couple minutes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all that you do as well. All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Aisha Miles. I am an attorney at Bone McAllister Norton, and I am running to be your next Davidson County Chancellor in Part 3. The current Chancellor is retiring, and I am seeking to fill her spot. I bring 10 years of business experience as well as my legal practice to this position, and I have always wanted to serve my community in this way, and so I'm extremely excited. I'm originally from Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, but I went to undergrad at Belmont and graduated from law school at Belmont. So I am celebrating actually my 20th year from graduating from undergrad, which is so hard to believe, but it's been a wonderful stay here in Nashville, wonderful time serving my community, and I would love for you all to remember Aisha Miles. I promise you there won't be another Aisha on the ballot. No competition there, and I would love your support and your vote. So I will have a few cards at the back. Would love for you all to take a card, remember me, and look me up at my website and on social media. And we're also having a campaign kickoff in case any of you all want to come by on October 6th. So thank you for having me, Russ. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
you.
All right, so moving on, just want to give a few updates on what I've been working on this last quarter. So legislatively, we know there's been some debate on license plate readers. There's been 2 bills brought up. One bill has been indefinitely deferred through process, but the sponsor, Councilmember Johnson, plans on bringing that one back. It was originally BL 2020-582, and it would allow for license plate readers to be installed on major metro streets. It would set up a 10-day storage time. After 10 days, all data would be erased, and it would set up some policy requirements for the program. Councilmember Rosenberg has a similar bill. The main difference between the two, Councilmember Johnson's bill would require the license plate readers to be on fixed positions, whereas Councilmember Rosenberg's would only require that the cameras be used by a handheld machine in the squad car. So if you want more details on those bills and how they differ, I did put that information on my most recent newsletter. If you'd like to get a copy of that, you can sign up on either the QR code in the back or use the sign-in sheet, and I can send you the most recent newsletter that has that side-by-side comparison of the 2 bills. Another bill that will be a resolution coming up on Tuesday is between me and Councilmember Nash on Public Works. We had a discussion a couple of months ago in the Public Works Committee of some of the confusion, some of the issues we have had between what used to be Public Works and now NDOT and TDOT on how they maintain the rights-of-ways on a lot of the state routes, like Murfreesboro Pike, the median. That's actually the state's responsibility to mow, not Metro's. Same thing with Bradley Parkway. The rights-of-way, the medians, anything like that, that's TDOT's responsibility. But they have a schedule of when they come around and do maintenance. And so the roadways may not get mowed as often as it would if it was a Metro property. So the idea was given to us by Councilmember Young, who represents Goodlettsville. Goodlettsville has a deal or a contract with the state, whereas Goodlettsville's Public Works Department does all of that right-of-way maintenance. They mow the medians, they mow the right-of-ways, they do all that, and then TDOT just pays them each year for that service. So the resolution is just asking the Nashville Department of Transportation to look into what it would cost for Metro to take over that and what we could get back from the state for doing it. And so it's not actually starting it, it's just asking NDOT to, hey, take a look at this, find out if it's something that we can afford to do and if the state's willing to enter into that contract with us. Now, there's one of my big ticket issues or items I've been kind of working on since I got elected was getting a library for District 13. Right now, if you live near the lake, you are pretty close to the Hermitage Library and the new Donaldson branch. But if you live on this side of the district, you have to go a little bit further. You either have to go to Thompson Lane, Nolensville, Southeast, or Edmondson. So this area particularly has been identified for future expansion by the library system. And so I drove around a couple weeks ago with the director of Nashville Public Libraries and looked at 2 potential sites for Metro to purchase. And as of last week, both properties have been deemed suitable by Metro, and so we're just trying to find ways to come up with the money. One avenue I'm hoping that we go through is using some of the federal funding that we got through the American Rescue Plan, which is designed for one-time purchases. So in this instance, it would qualify for buying the land that we can later use. So hopefully we can get that money secured. But as of right now, I feel like we're one step closer to having that library in the district. The 2 sites we're looking at, there's 6 acres right across the street from Seven Oaks Park on McGavick. That that says a possibility. Also, the old Donaldson Heat and Air site, which is on Murfreesboro and Vultee. That is the preferred site for myself and the library director because of its visibility from Murfreesboro Pike, and the fact that the building itself could probably just be rehabbed and instead of torn down, or if it has to be torn down, the property is at least already graded. Whereas the 6 acres on McGavick, you'd have to cut down the trees, you'd have to grade it and do all that. So those are 2 sites we're looking at, and hopefully with the next year we can get some okay with the funding on that. The other item is I am working with a local business owner, and hopefully with the next couple weeks may be able to announce a new business coming into the district at the Priest Point Shopping Center, which is on Bell Road over by the lake. Those are the updates I've got for you tonight. I do want to recognize Ms. Wendy Longmire, another candidate for one of our judge positions. She just walked in, so I would like to go ahead and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and take a couple minutes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I apologize for being late.
If you'll come
You have to
stand
sit in
here.
the front, right here?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
recording.
Oh, you're recording. Okay, and so can I take
Yeah,
notes?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, know the rules. Okay, well, I'm Wendy Longmire, and I've met some of you before, and thanks for having me back. I'm running for First Circuit Court Judge, and I've never run for another office. This is the first time, and I am offering my 35 years of experience back to Nashville, Davidson County, and I've been practicing law for 35 years and trying cases, lots of them in circuit court. That's really where I live and breathe. And this particular judge is retiring. It's an open seat. I'd love to earn your vote and your support, and I hope I have some poll cards that I'd love to give you because you can look me up and find out about my experience. And this wonderful man has been kind enough to endorse me and take me around and meet people all over the city, and I really appreciate that, Russ. Thank you,
problem.
and thanks for letting me speak. Thank you all.
All right, and with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to our Homeless Impact Division. Let them go ahead and kind of explain a little bit what they do and any potential areas of interest they have in the area. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Abigail Dowell. I'm the Assistant Director for the Homeless Impact Division. Our Director, Judith Tackett, was not able to be here tonight. As many people, she's finally getting to visit some family, so we're happy that she was able to do that. We work for the Homeless Impact Division. We are actually a division of Metro Social Services, which is a department for Metro. In our division, we focus on planning and coordination around issues of homelessness, with really a goal to create a housing crisis resolution system that will end and prevent homelessness, which we realize is a very large goal. It will take us a long time to get there, but that is what we are always working towards in our space. We have a team of about 15 people now, which has grown significantly in the last couple of months. We've been hovering around 10 for most of the past several years that I've worked there. So I promise you, we are working hard for you. And we are focused on several different areas of planning and coordination around homelessness, but I just wanted to talk to you guys about 3 main ones right now, because I think that will affect you all most and be something that's most interesting to you. But if there's ever any other questions, happy to answer other things as well. So one thing that I want to talk to you about is last fall, when our city received CARES Act funding, we received one pot that was specifically geared towards assisting individuals experiencing homelessness. And we in Nashville, with a lot of our nonprofit partners and with our public housing authority, MDHA, decided to work on housing people permanently who have been experiencing homelessness, either outside or in a shelter. So we made a goal last fall to house 400 people within 1 year, and I'm very pleased to say that we have surpassed that goal already. As of Monday, we've housed 517 people with that one pot of funding, and just so that is on top of the amount of people who would typically be housed through other types of funding that we have in our community. So we're really happy about that. We set a goal to reach 600 by the end of this year, and I foresee that we will be able to meet that goal. One of our biggest concerns with that is always having enough landlords in place and housing in place that will rent to individuals who've experienced homelessness, that will help lower barriers, help take different types of subsidies or financial assistance that's available. So that's one of our big calls to action for the community all over Nashville, is to help us increase the number of landlords that we have available for this process and to be able to house people. So we are working on that piece in a couple of different ways now. One is we are asking our community members to help us engage in that. If you know landlords or you are interested in helping us to engage landlords, please let me know after this. I'm happy to give you my card. We have a special training just for that. We have also created a website and a group called the Low Barrier Housing Collective, and that is really working to bring these landlords together as well as the service providers to better work together and to navigate these processes together, but we are always looking for more. In the coming weeks and months, we will be working on putting out 198 Section 8 vouchers that are specifically geared for people experiencing homelessness. Now that came through the American Rescue Plan. And so we're excited about that. But the biggest thing about vouchers is being able to have someone to take those. So we know that we can get those people housed, we can provide them services, and it's just having somebody who's willing to house folks with those. The other thing that we do with vouchers is we have a partnership with MDHA where they provide 18 vouchers per month for people experiencing homelessness, and we work with them very closely to help get those into the hands of the people who are most vulnerable. We do that through a process called coordinated entry, which I won't go into all the different levels of explaining that, but it is really geared towards making sure we're housing people who are most vulnerable first, as opposed to when you might have a first come, first served wait list. So some of the other things that we're doing to help address outdoor homelessness, because we know that that is either grown or become more visible over the past year and through COVID-19. We're still working to identify just exactly how much that's changed. But we are always focused on solutions-oriented and housing-focused approaches, and that is what we are always working towards in our office. We did just hire 3 new outreach team members in our office. We had 1, so this is a huge step for us to have 4, and that really allows us to coordinate with all the other outreach service providers. In Nashville, we have about 15 nonprofit service providers that do outreach in the community to people who are experiencing homelessness outside. And this helps us to work together with all of them so that 1, not everyone's in the same place, and 2, we're able to hit all of the gaps. So there are parts of Nashville that, you know, people don't necessarily think to go to or check out, or if we get phone calls or we get requests through Hub Nashville, you know, we're going out there to make sure people are getting services, and when we find out that they're not, we want to know who to connect them with and get them connected to those services as quickly as possible. So that's part of our role with our outreach team. So we are working on that. We are holding weekly coordination meetings with all the outreach service providers to help get to that place, to help create service standards so that everyone who is experiencing homelessness and is outside is being served with the highest standards and all in the same manner, so that everyone's getting connected into housing as quickly as possible and being provided with the necessary documentation to be housed as quickly as possible, all of those things that we're working on. We also work very close with the police department and several other metro departments in Nashville as needs arise. We are constantly coordinating, which I think is one of the probably things that people don't hear about most, is how much that we all work together and talk to each other. So that's another big piece of our role with our outreach team as well as with leadership in our team. You have a question?
Yes. Have y'all been around the Murfreesboro Road, Thompson Lane corner behind the car wash
Yes, ma'am, we have.
and everything?
Yeah, and we completely,
It's like deep in the woods.
yes, there are several outreach teams from different nonprofits that work with folks in those areas, and our outreach team does as well. And I will tell you this, anytime a request is submitted in Hub Nashville, someone from our team physically goes out to talk to folks, to try to find out what the needs are, and to work with our partners on what we're finding when we go out there. So if you put one in, you should always get a phone call back or an email if you provide contact information, because we want you to know what's happening and not to feel like you're just putting a request into nowhere. So we do take those seriously. So, but thank you for asking. We do have people in that area.
And I will add to that, if you do submit, not just for social services, but any request through Hub, I always advise, go ahead and email me your reference number that you get back. That way, if you don't hear back for any reason, let me know and I can use that reference and follow up on my end.
Thank you. Yeah, that's always a good idea. We do try to respond back within 72 hours. So it is true that if you don't hear something, please reach out, because it's usually just a missed response there. We want to make sure that we address any of those concerns. I did write some things down. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. One of the biggest things that we are about to launch in coordination with Metro Council and the Mayor's Office, they funded a mobile housing navigation center, $850,000 to provide mobile housing navigation over the next 2 years. And you might hear that term and you're like, what is that? That is actually a process to help right now ease some of the congestion and some encampments, so that we can get people housed as quickly as possible. So sometimes when you're working with folks who've been living outside for a long time, there are a lot of support needs there that they have. They need a lot of documentations that it's hard to keep up with when you're living outside. And so you really need some strong wraparound services. So these mobile housing navigation centers will bring 15 to 20 people inside, utilizing different churches around the city. We're going to run 3 sites at a time. And then they will move based on the need and how quickly that's addressed in each area. We're trying to keep it as nimble as possible because it's new, so that we can adjust to make sure that it's really working well for the communities. So they will work with 15 to 20 people at a time, providing that intensive support with the goal of housing an individual within 90 days. of moving into that center. So overall, we hope to serve about 250 people with this process, and we will be keeping strong data and records so that we can know what's working, what's not working, adjust as needed, and hopefully work to gain more funding to be able to do this if it is working as we intend, and think that it will based on other communities and best practices that we know and we've seen. So that is one of our other big initiatives that we're about to start. And those are just kind of some highlights, but I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll be here afterwards as well. So.
Well, I've got one question I want to bring up, just so, because I know I've heard this question before, and I know there's other cities that have dealt with this. You know, we're talking about trying to get the homeless into housing before we, you know, address any other issues they may have. And some people are probably thinking, you know, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Can you kind of explain why it's a better system to get people in housing than work on any issues that may have caused them to become homeless?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Good question. So he's right. One of the things that we really try to do, and is considered a best practice across the nation and even the world, is to house somebody as quickly as possible and not wait for them to be what's considered housing ready. We want them to have a roof over their head, because it's really difficult to work on health issues, or if you have a substance use disorder or a mental health disorder. It's hard to work on those. It's hard to keep up with medications. It's hard to keep up with appointments, all of those things if you don't have a roof over your head. If you're trying to figure out every day where you're going to sleep, how you're going to get food, you know, how you're going to stay clean, it's also hard to get a job that way, and do all of these things that we who are housed take for granted on a regular basis. So those are just some of the reasons. It's exhausting to live outside all the time. You know, you're constantly moving and you're not sleeping well, all of these things. So it's really the best idea to go ahead and get them housed, get them in a safe space, and then that way you also have a place where you know someone will be. So if I'm a service provider or case manager, I know where they're gonna be, I know how to get in touch with them, so that we can work together very regularly to help get them the other supports and the stability that they need to maintain that housing.
What if during that time the person chooses not to show up to appointments or do what is necessary for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So different service providers have different methods of how they work with folks with that. Our thought is it's always best to put the person first, and it can be difficult to go from living outside to having to keep up with lots of different appointments, and we also don't want to push somebody towards something that they may not be ready for. You know, you want somebody to want to do something, so it's really about meeting a person where they're at. And so if they're not ready for employment, or they're not interested in employment, as an example, then it would be about, okay, what are you interested in? What are your goals? What are your needs? And starting kind of further back with, okay, how do we help you get there? And just kind of really taking it day by day, moment by moment, and having a lot of grace and understanding with each other, then with the case manager as well, and really working together on those things.
Yeah. One more question in the back, and then we'll turn it over to police. I'm sure you'll be willing to stay behind for a little bit if there's additional questions.
I just have a quick question. I've noticed more and more homeless people throughout the city, and is that something that we are just seeing as the city grows, exponential growth, as our city becomes a more expensive place to live, or has it always been, you know, this large of a problem and it's just more visible? You know, I don't remember it being this visible, at least in years past. So do we know what the trigger point is?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we are constantly trying to work on and think through and figure out. So we do hold in our office something called a homeless management information system, which is a database. We try to gather data and information on ideally every person experiencing homelessness in Nashville, so that we have a really strong understanding of why someone's experiencing homelessness, how many people are experiencing homelessness on any given day. We're still building that, so I don't have an exact answer for you based on data. Anecdotally, we do what's called a point in time count every winter, where we physically go out as a community of service providers and count any individual we see staying outside. And we also get a count from all the shelters. And what we've seen over the course of the years is that number really has stayed the same. So that it's not an amount that will tell you how many people experience homelessness all year long, but it will at least give you an idea of on any given night how many people might be experiencing homelessness either outside or in a shelter. So we've seen it actually decrease. Now this last winter, we did not do the outdoor count because we didn't want to accidentally infect anybody who might be really vulnerable, which people experiencing homelessness are. So we didn't want to be getting up into people's faces to ask them questions or count and that sort of thing. So we did not do the outside count. We did see a reduction in people in shelters. We don't necessarily know that that's because there's been a reduction in homelessness, but perhaps that people aren't staying in shelters because they want to stay outside where they feel it's safer. They're able to socially distance more, that sort of thing. It does feel like it's become more visible. My thought would be is that with the increase of building and development in Nashville, people are being pushed out of areas where they might have been before, and more into the open. And again, if people are not staying in the shelters right now as much as they would have been before, you might be seeing more people that way. But that's the best answer I can give to that, and I know it's not a real concrete.
Well, and as we're waiting for, since we're sitting in the Hermitage Precincts now, I'm going to let them go first. While they're coming up here, I'll just kind of piggyback on what she was talking about. The first bill that I got approved on council came about after the change in terms, where it was announced that Metro wasn't going to operate emergency homeless shelters that winter, and so there's a lot of pushback, and Metro finally decided they were going to do that. So I reached out, worked with Social Services, Homeless Impact, OEM, and the Mayor's Office, and now, thanks to the legislation I passed, after they do that study every winter, then all these departments that handle our overflow shelters and our emergency shelters have to submit a report to council by the end of spring, letting us know what the projected need is for that next winter and how many shelters do they anticipate using, what nonprofit providers are they going to be working with, so that we don't find ourselves in that similar situation of it's about to get cold and we don't know what we're going to do. So, I appreciate Abigail for coming here. I appreciate all the work the Homeless Impact Division does for us. And with that, I will hand it over to our wonderful Hermitage Precinct officers.
All right. I can probably answer or give some input to some of the questions that were answered to the Homeless Impact Division. But first of all,
can you introduce yourself?
Oh, that's right. I'm Lieutenant Matt Pilkus of the Hermitage Precinct. I am the A shift, which is the day shift lieutenant supervisor over all the officers that do patrol in the Hermitage side of Murfreesboro Road and up through the rest of your district. As far as the homeless question, where you were talking about maybe the visibility or maybe the count number going up like that, she said something about construction. I would say that would have something to do with it, but especially in the inner loop downtown. If everybody knows about the inner loop, to be quite honest with you, that's where a lot of people in America are going. That's where the entertainment is. That's where there's things to do. And they are highly visible because of that. I can confirm the homeless subjects that I have talked with, there are many of them that don't want to have anything to do with the shelters because they are afraid that they will get sick. They would rather stay outside in the open air. Now, is that the majority of them? No, I wouldn't say that's the majority of them, but that would be a segment of them. So that is something. And speaking of homelessness, I would say this, and maybe Commander Stevens can back me up on this. When it comes to homelessness, the arrest is not the preferred response. That's not really what we're here for. Between the Homeless Impact Division and the police department is the de facto, default to this. Because a lot of people can't, and a lot of different agencies, they don't know what to do. And I know that there's some representatives here from the judicial branch of this. I know that they would probably feel the same way, that why are you in my courtroom? You may have a maybe mental health is better, area products are better for you. Maybe education is better for you. Talking about getting them into structures is better for them, rather than the police becoming the default, a homeless, the ones dealing with the homeless. There is a certain segment, like there is in any part of society, of true criminals that would be part of the homeless, society, but we will deal with those. But the vast majority of them, they're not criminals. They're not. So that is how we deal with that. The Sheriff's Department, new facility downtown, they're helping us filter through with those that need to get mental health. We now have at the Hermitage Precinct, we now have a program called Community Intervention Teams. That's CIT is what we call it. And we have a mental health clinician that rides with police officers now, every day. And they go out and they assess people, and people that are in distress. Some of them are homeless. Others are people that are having a really bad day, and assess them to see if they can be provided with a mental health product. Again, the preferred response is not arrest for these people and to put them into the Sheriff's Department. That's not where they need to be. They need to be dealing with a clinician and with counselors. So that's something else that the Hermitage Precinct and the North Precinct were both chosen to be the pilot programs for that, and soon other precincts will be coming online. I do believe South is on track to get into there at some point also. So that's one thing that's happening. Another thing that is happening in District 13 is we have what is called CET, which are the Community Engagement Teams, which is a group of officers. They don't take radio calls, they don't go and answer alarms, they don't work accidents. They have been working primarily in your area, Murfreesboro and Thompson Lane, Mill Creek. As we know, for many years, that area may not have gotten the attention that it needed. It is getting the attention that it needs now from the Metro Police Department. But these officers are trained somewhat differently. They receive extra training because they try to also find alternatives to arrest. And they've worked very much with the Homeless Impact Division. There are no more camps under the Mill Creek Bridge right now on Phil, or I do believe there is some campers to the back of Philfree Court back there, but we're working with them on a daily basis. Officers actually have been the ones that have been arranging mobile showers for these people. Wow. When's the last time that you thought, what are the police doing arranging mobile showers for residentially challenged persons? Rather than us going down there, putting them in a squad car and taking them downtown to booking. Well, that's not what they needed. They needed a shower. They needed some clean socks, and that gets them out of that situation. So that's one thing that's happened between the CIT teams and the CET teams that are especially focused in your district right now. And then moving on from that, if you go out to the hotel areas right there at I-40 and Stewart's Ferry, we have a special squad of officers that have been working those hotels as of late. And also the Human Trafficking Division has been especially working that area out there, because some of those hotels have some challenges where there are some people that have been caught up in a situation, a trafficking situation, that they need assistance in coming out of. So we do have a new unit that works out of downtown. Well, I call it downtown. It's actually 600 Murfreesboro. That's not downtown anymore, is it? It's a beautiful building. Thank
Maybe
you.
the next 2 years that's
Yeah.
downtown.
But, and it's, I believe it's 10 officers and a captain, and I believe they might have a lieutenant now. And they are specifically focused on human trafficking, and that is one of the areas that they are concentrating on.
That's the biggest problem we have all over this whole country is human trafficking.
That is a problem,
It
and
truly is.
it's been below the radar, and it's been there for many years, and people
Yes.
just didn't know about it or talk about it. But it is an issue. So those are some things that are happening that I can talk about really quickly. Our community affairs sergeant, Sergeant Weaver, is here, and I know Commander Stevens is here if he needed to add anything else in. But I'm willing to answer any questions. I wasn't exactly sure what you were going to speak of, but I'm just kind of giving you an overview. Oh, two more things. As everybody can see, I'm wearing a body-worn camera. It's not activated at this time, but we're all issued one of these now. Thank you. The funding has happened. The rollout has happened. The rollout is complete. Every marked patrol officer, patrol car that you see, and many of the unmarked ones, all have a camera system on it. It is a top flight system. And it syncs with these right here. And I have to be very, very honest with you. I've been on 27 years. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever wearing this thing. Because I'm gonna be quite honest with you, 9 times out of 10, and I know I'm just picking a number out of the air, 9 times out of 10, this shows that the police department did their job correctly, all right? And so give them to us, we're fine with it. And I guess that's it.
I've got one question. You can
All right.
either answer it, or we can let Sergeant Weaver or Commander Stevens. One question that I've gotten a lot, especially with the hotel area there off of I-40, and we had an incident of this happen. I don't know if it was Hermitage or South, where we had a business on Murfreesboro Pike that was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of go through like what it actually takes for MNPD to actually go into a business and shut it down, padlock, and say you're a nuisance?
Well, that falls under the disorderly houses ordinance. Usually one of the criminal court judges, I think the one that they worked on with, that you're referring to, just past Mill Creek, was that Dozier? Yeah, and that is in conjunction with the district attorney's office. It is not something where we've had a problem for a few weekends or a couple months or something like that. It is a very long process. You know, we do intelligence, we watch these places, we look at how many times officers have been called out there through our CAD, which is our computer-aided dispatch system. How many times have officers gone out there? And we look at the hours, the manpower hours that have taken place in dealing with this area and the number of complaints that we've had on it. And then a case officer is usually assigned to it, and it is a months-long process. It's not something that just happens like that. And those officers, along with the case officer and with a representative from the district attorney's office, and they take all of that and they go before a judge, and the judge looks at it. And it's looked at by a number of different people, and then finally, eventually, someday it happens. But it is a long and complicated process. It's not something that's very easy, but usually when something happens with a place, it is, trust me, it is well deserved.
And just in case someone has a question, because I want to post this recording on Facebook after we're done. You can tell us if you can or cannot answer this, but the one problem that I keep hearing about in that corner is the Lotus Inn.
Dollars.
Are you aware if that is in any step of the process, or are y'all even looking at potentially declaring that a nuisance?
I would tell you this. I'm aware of the problems in that geographical area. I wouldn't be at liberty, of course, to go into that right now. But the best that I can say to you right now is we are aware of the issues.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and.
I would say that's a last case scenario to padlock a business. I mean, that's someone's income. And the majority of padlocks are on either hotels that have large call volumes, or that was a business. I know we did in Hermitage, there was one padlock on a residence that literally had hundreds and hundreds of calls. But that is a last resort, period. We never want to put a padlock on a business, and it's whenever it becomes a public safety issue where it literally affects hundreds of people, that's when we step in, so.
To piggyback on that, I'm Sergeant Robert Weaver. As of today, I'm the new community coordinator for Hermitage Precinct. I'm not new to Hermitage. I've been back on the day shift for about 6 years. I'm 23 years with Metro. I've worked out of Hermitage when it was covered out of South and was a concrete slab. It used to be my patrol zone around there. So I was on the first Midnight's crew that opened it. To follow what Commander Stevens said, we do take it serious. There are multiple facets, along with what Lieutenant Pilkus said. There's the call volume, the investigation, but we also have to make sure that there has to be an involved party. It's not simply somebody tolerating something going on. It's somebody that's usually actively engaged in a criminal enterprise, facilitating a criminal enterprise. So we do want to make sure that business owners that have struggled with keeping their lots clean, doing those things, if they are partnering with us, which is what we ask for, we're going to help them get to the level that they want to maintain their business. Most of these situations that have involved padlocking involve somebody who is profiting from criminal enterprise that's going along on that location. So just to copy what Commander was saying. We are aware of multiple locations. We are working with partnerships. Before he left, now Lieutenant John Robinson and I went out to a couple of hotels along there and did site visits. One of the site visits is another program that we're rolling out where we look at infrastructure around a building. We make sure that the lighting is appropriate. We make sure that shrubbery is cut to a way that doesn't allow somebody to hide in bushes. Makes it easier for officers who are on patrol to see what's going on. One of the things that we deal with is burglaries from motor vehicles and items being taken from motor vehicles. Most dangerous is weapons being taken from motor vehicles. So we engage in community outreach with informational campaigns to make sure people take your vehicles inside, secure your valuables, especially your weapons. Those are things that we worry and concentrate about. Again, to go off what Lieutenant Pilkus said, we've got Office of Community Outreach is also partnering with the Homeless Coalition and service providers, making sure that we reach out in a multifaceted way to deal with residentially challenged neighbors. It does seem to be becoming a little bit more visible, and there are a number of reasons that could be happening. Some of it is they are homeless residents end up being, they go to where services are being provided, and that helps our outreach to be able to get them into programming, but it also can lead to communities having to deal with homeless issues where they didn't have them before. We were at a community meeting last week, and they are dealing with that. The Office of Community Outreach works with these agencies trying to engage, get people housed, and the housing is a huge issue. Like Abigail said, you've got to get somebody secure so that they can then go through all the processes of the paperwork to get a driver's license, to get all the things we take for granted, to be able to have those things secure. And if you've got to worry about getting a bus ticket to Lentz or getting somewhere to eat, it makes it a challenge. The police department is engaged on all those levels to address those concerns. What I've said previously to other community groups, we have to work with community stakeholders, people in the area, partners, business owners. You all determine the level of what you want in your community. You then work with the elected officials to communicate to us, and we all have to partner to say this is what the community wants, and we all work together to get to that goal. So that's what we're engaged in, and that's what we're going to keep working for.
And you may not have an update yet since you just started this. I don't know how much now Lieutenant Robinson has talked with you about. But those who live on this side of this are well aware, over the summer we had a big issue with an apartment complex. And we had a meeting between myself, representatives of the apartment complex, and MNPD to try and figure out a way to improve safety and to address some of the concerns that residents were having out at Mosaic.
Yes.
I know there was talks of officers, bilingual officers, going out there and trying to build some trust with the community to help with the reporting of any crimes that happened, to make sure that the residents felt comfortable
Yes.
reaching out to the police on safety issues. Do we know where all that is right now?
Well, today's an exciting day in Metro government. We've also had a lot of promotions. The officer that was spearheading that was utilizing some of the techniques that he had used in South very effectively to partner with those communities out South. He has been promoted, but I do know prior to the promotion, he was working in those areas, building that rapport. The Office of Community Outreach builds rapport. They go to underserved communities that have traditionally either been resistant or not engaged with police services. They build that rapport, and then their job is to transfer it over to the precincts. We maintain those relationships. As far as Mosaic, again, I've been out here since in a number of versions of that apartment complex, worked with the citizens there. I was out there that day. They're making grounds to communicate. I think some of the issue was what the complex owner was trying to communicate that may have not been clear to residents who are not primarily English speakers and don't have access to interpretive services. I think that some of those issues have been addressed. The apartment owner needed to make some repairs and take care of some deficiencies in a property that they recently acquired. How that was communicated was an issue. We're working with all those stakeholders to build those relationships. As OCOP continues to make those inroads, that relationship will be passed over to us. Again, our CET team, community engagement team, was working in that area, working again with all those stakeholders, and we'll continue to do that. In a time of transition in the department with promotions and everything, the mission still goes forward, and new officers and new team members will be brought in to pick up where that work goes off. Just like Sergeant Robinson has passed on a portfolio to me, I will get it prepared to move along to somebody else, and we'll keep serving those that we need to.
Well, I know the end goal we were working on with Mosaic was using those community engagement teams, building that trust, and eventually hosting we were hoping to have like a fall fair or fall festival, have police, OEM, fire, health, and do a neighborhood safety day so that the residents could be aware of, who they can reach out to for certain issues. And unfortunately, with the Delta variant popping back up, it's kind of put that on hold for now. But eventually we want to be able to let not just Mosaic, but any community be able to reach out to our public safety officials and kind of help with that education. Because I think the biggest thing for a community is to be educated. Know who you can contact, what they're capable of doing for you, and vice versa. So, Sergeant, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on the
Appreciate
promotion. Welcome.
Thank you.
And with that,
One last thing on that, though. I do want to, again, very officially make it very, very clear that the police department was not working in conjunction with the management there in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely. And second of all, we are very, very concerned that some of those communities are being victimized, and we are not being told about robberies, carjackings, assaults, because in some of the cultures that they may have come from, police departments may not have been as professional and as ethical as we are here in the United States. And so we're having to build that trust to let them know that we actually are there for them, not against them. Anyway, sorry, Commander.
I appreciate that. And now, Commander Stevens of South Precinct. Fun note I'll add is when I was doing some research from some stuff, You know, we are about to have our 9th precinct open up in the Antioch area. Well, just to let you know, the South Precinct is now our oldest precinct in the city.
That's right. So I'm Keith Stevens, the commander of the South Precinct. You're like, why is Hermitage here? Why is South here? So Murfreesboro Pike, if you're going inbound, everything to the right is Hermitage, everything to the left is South. So South sits in District 13. So I appreciate your partnership. I appreciate anytime I need you, you're always available. I appreciate that and the efforts that you've done to make our district better. So District 13 on the south side is extremely quiet. We have a lot of businesses. Really the biggest issues and complaints that I get in your district is traffic, which I think everybody here kind of shakes your head. If you drive on Murfreesboro Pike, if you drive on Curry Road and some of the neighborhoods here, people fly. You know, I think with COVID, I think less cars on the street, people are driving faster. The biggest things that I like to preach, I know time-wise, Lieutenant Pilkus and Sergeant Weaver have hit a lot of public safety issues. Biggest complaints I get is traffic and homeless issues. I can tell you, the Homeless Impact Commission is doing tremendous work. Ms. Renee Pratt, Judith Tackett, of course, Abigail, I haven't met you, so it's nice to meet you. They're completely understaffed. They are understaffed. They need more help. They need more outreach people that are willing to go out and meet people. But homelessness is an issue. It's not a crime. However, when they commit crimes, that's whenever we have to step in. So it's something that we just met this past week. We're meeting quarterly on trying to find ways to get them housed. Rapid rehousing has been a huge deal in the South Precinct. We're housing over, I know 100 for sure right now. So it's great. Traffic, I could say road rage issues. Just standing here, and I just beg when you're in a car, try to drive the speed limit. Don't engage with aggressive drivers. That's one thing that old days you may decide to stick a hand up, whatever. Just pay attention to yourself. Just this week, we had a shooting on Murfreesboro Pike where a truck driver was driving outbound, minding his own business. A car was driving too fast, stopped, got out and shot through his door, and it struck him. It's road rage. We've had at least 5 or 6 incidents just this week. So pay attention when you're driving. Don't engage other drivers. If you see reckless drivers, call the police. We'll do the best that we can. We do have aggressive driving unit in the traffic division that does address that, but it's a daily thing that we're having to deal with. So yes, ma'am.
Can we talk about this issue, and it does seem to be getting a lot worse, I'm assuming most of them are homeless. There are probably some that aren't, they're just addicts trying to get money for their drugs. But the folks that are standing out on all the street corners, I've almost hit them a couple of times because they walked right out in front of my car.
Sure.
Because it's gotten like, it's almost dark and I can't really see that well, and I've almost hit a few of them.
Sure.
So, I don't know, it does seem to be becoming more and more of an issue now, where they're just literally everywhere. You can't go anywhere without them just, trying to flag you down or getting in front of your car or, do something. Hey, I give them money, I'm good with that, but it's getting to where it's really dangerous. It's dangerous for the drivers and it's dangerous for the people doing it.
So for a law, when they're in the roadway, that does become a criminal act. We can engage and we can cite them. The issue is they don't have money to pay. So we look at, it kind of becomes a frustration for us. We go arrest them and then they get right back out, do the same
Just that
thing.
revolving door.
It is. So we need to figure out a way to get them a job, which I know their Salvation Army, there are plenty of people that will.
Some of them have cars. I've seen them parked in front of Kroger's. Okay, they pull into the gas, over there to the gas station, they get up their little signs and they get their little money and they get back in their cars. I think some of it, they're just running a game where, whatever, I don't know, but it's frustrating.
There will be people that take advantage of that situation. There will be.
And on top of that, it's the litter, okay? The littering is off the chain.
Sure. So we're working with Public Works. Our goal is to report that. Hub, if you go on Hub, you can report trash. Hub Nashville is a great place to do that. And they'll come by and pick up trash. It is a problem. I mean, we can spend hours speaking about this, but at the end of the day, it's our goal to try to provide them services.
It started like 10 years ago. Before
Sure.
that, I never saw this, and it seemed like it started whenever they had the little magazines that they were selling, and now it's like they're not even selling the magazines, they're just standing there, right? So, but I don't understand why it just allowed to just keep going on, like.
It is a very complicated issue. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am?
I am the neighborhood watch person for the area, and I did just wanna kind of stress on her comment. If somebody does start approaching your car, be careful. There have been a lot of carjackings from people just looking like they're hurt or they need help. And then next thing you know, you're getting carjacked or something. I always say, if you see somebody that needs help, drive to a safe place, no matter where that is. And
That's a
call
great point.
911.
So always be aware of your surroundings. Having situational awareness is very important. And my last point, I know we're running short on time. Sergeant Weaver mentioned guns in cars. Please, if you're a responsible gun owner, don't leave your gun in your car, because right now we're having a lot of car break-ins. They take a gun and they're using those guns in other crimes. So be responsible if you do own a gun. Otherwise, if no one else has questions, I'll
Okay.
see. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we've got two more things on the agenda tonight. Judge Lynda Jones has showed up. She is over the homeless court. I had, since tonight's kind of message was homelessness and how to help, I reached out to Judge Jones and asked her if she'd kind of come explain what it is she does with her court. And with that, Judge Jones.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Councilman, and thank you to the police officers for their service. They have a hard job. It's not easy. So as much support that they can get, it's very appreciated. I do preside over the homelessness court. It is 1 o'clock tomorrow. If you would like to come, I'm going to hand out some of my business cards. I want you to see what it's about. So, for example, tomorrow's docket at 1 p.m., we have 8 folks who are not on the docket because they are homeless. They are on the docket because of the type of offenses they have been picked up for. It's usually criminal trespassing, paraphernalia, public disorderly. And what we do is connect them with services at Room at the Inn. What we're trying to do is get as many people off the street as possible and rapidly rehouse. Their data and intake information is directly entered into the HMS system for Metro Nashville. So we connect them with one social worker who can take their case from beginning to end. And most of these folks don't have just one problem that's thrown them into the street. They have multiple problems. They lost their apartment. They don't have a birth certificate, so they can't get a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you can't get a job. And so what we've been able to do is take these folks in, connect them with a social worker, get them temporary housing. For example, City Road United Methodist Church over in Madison is now taking in 12 folks that they will house temporarily for 90 days. And we are trying to find as many places as we can. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Glencoe Village, but how that's worked. But that's a place that will take in homeless people that are recuperating from medical surgery and recovery. And these folks simply have no place to turn. They've been cast out by their family for whatever reason, or they don't know anyone in Tennessee, or they've lost their house due to COVID, lost their job, they didn't have a big home to begin with. So the DA and the public defender came up with a list of offenses where they can think they can still help people. Now, there are some people who are never going to be able to help, and that's just the reality and the sadness of the situation. However, we're expanding this court. When we first started a year ago, and it's been exactly 1 year since we started with 3 people on the docket. Now we're up to 8 people on the docket, and we hope to be able to expand it and double it, because unfortunately, the federal dollars that were made available by the government did not go to landlords directly, and some landlords turned it down and said, no, I'd rather have my property back. So we're about to see an increase in homelessness because the evictions are rising. So the serendipity of developing this, we started back in June of 2019 before we even knew what COVID was. And now we have a pilot court in place at Room at the Inn where we can take people in, and we think we've worked most of the bugs out. It seems to be working pretty well. We have some success stories. And so what we're trying to do is open up the courts and connect people to the services that are already here in the community, because those people that you're seeing on the street corner that you're afraid of, and I hate that you're living in fear like that when you stop at a stoplight, but they just don't know what services are out there that already exist. So there's a whole huge community of people who want to help. We have Shower Up, we have Open Table, Room at the Inn, Union Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, and they're all trying to get these people where they can go. There are some people who will simply listen to the story and say, oh, you need a bus ticket back to California? Okay, I'll help you out. So there's a lot of people trying to work on this problem and solve this problem. So we're all trying to collaborate and do this together. And I'm handing my cards out so that if you ever need anything, you can reach out to my assistant. I'm gonna tell you, and I hope I'm not contradicting any of the officers, but if you see a crime being committed, go ahead and call the police. If you see someone with a crack pipe or a joint or something like that, go ahead and call. A lot of these people are living in despair, and their lives are so hard on the street that they want to stay stoned or high just to forget it all. So it's actually can be doing a kindness. If you call the officer picks them up and charges them, and then they can be referred to the homelessness court, and we can try to connect them to services. Obviously, we will want to send people out into the community to get people services before they're arrested, but that's, you know, an ideal world that doesn't exist quite yet, and we're all trying to work together to solve the problems. Do any of you have any questions about any of this? I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, and you might be very frustrated with the homelessness community, but believe me, we're all trying to come up with solutions, from the mayor's office to community groups to nonprofits, to the police department, to the district attorney, to the public defender, the contributor newspaper. And if somebody's standing on a corner just asking for money, they're not selling the contributor newspaper. They all are identified by a big gold badge, and that's who's selling the contributor. And those folks are getting into housing, they're selling papers, they're making a living, they're learning a skill, and they take that skill elsewhere. And I know some people who've done very, very well getting off the street and building their confidence by selling newspapers that educate people about the community. So I just wanted to let you know I'm here and available. I've been on the bench for 7 years, running for re-election, and I don't think I'm gonna have any opponent.
That's always good.
But I want your input, and I want to hear about all these problems, because I didn't know about this apartment complex. So it's always good to know. All right?
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, thank you.
And the last thing on the agenda, Ravi is the local Boy Scout. I believe he's working on a project. I'll invite him kind of talk about what he is doing, and if he's got any brochures he wants to pass out, I'll invite him to do that right now.
Good evening, good evening. Do I just stand right here?
Yeah, he's all right. You can talk to them just.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Ravindra Rajaram, but that is a mouthful, so you guys can just call me Ravi. I am hosting a car wash as a fundraiser for my Eagle project. It's a renovation of the Challenger Garden. If you know what that is, it is here at the church actually. If you go out here, take a right, walk a little bit that way, and it's just sitting there. It's really nice, really pretty. But I just worked to just renovate it, touch it up. It's because the class of 2003, the Challenger class, they had originally promised to keep it nice and pretty forever. However, unfortunately, they grew old. So some of them can't really do that anymore. So I plan to do that for them.
Okay, I'm class of 2003. Be careful.
So I do have these flyers to pass out. Go through that. One thing to note, I did the dates wrong on that. They say the 11th and the 12th, which is actually last weekend, but they're supposed to say the 18th and the 19th, which is this weekend. It is going to be happening from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the first day, the 18th, and on Sunday after 10 a.m. or after the 10 a.m. worship, which is around 11, it will happen from around 2. You can just pull around. I'll be most likely on the parking lot that's like on that side of the church. I'll have a nice sign, just advertising nice and big for you guys.
You have people helping you, or are you by yourself?
I do have people helping me, some fellow scouts. So yeah, there'll be people just holding up the sign, just people in the just the car wash line area thing. It'll work out nice.
Where do you go to school?
Valor, if you've heard of that, it's a new
Oh,
school.
you know, I'm familiar with Valor. Yeah.
That is about it I have. If there's no more questions, then I can step out of the way.
Well, I really appreciate that, Ravi, and I'll take one of those so I can make sure I put it out on social media to get you some cars. So with that, we've just got a few minutes left. I want to open up to any additional questions that you may have for me or for any of our guests. One thing I will add that I forgot to add at the beginning about updates. Metro Council has kind of changed our committee structure. We've been using the same 14 council committees since 1963. So we've worked to kind of well, it wasn't a major streamline. We went from 14 to 11, but we've kind of made some of the committees more streamlined. And one of the committees I helped champion, it's a combination of our public safety and our old, what used to be public safety and health and hospitals. So now we will have a public health and safety committee on the council to kind of help make sure, because as we know, as we've heard tonight, a lot of our issues with public safety can be connected with public health and vice versa. So it's kind of important to make sure that all those issues sit in the same committee, as it were. So with that,
I just would like to say that I'm Susan Speak, the pastor here at Arlington United Methodist Church. I just started this summer, and just wanted to welcome you all to our church. And if you're looking for a place to worship, we would welcome you Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. We are still having worship here. However, we're also going to be streaming it on Facebook. Thank you.
Very appreciative of the staff here at Arlington for allowing us to be here, not just here, but they've been the host site of many of our meetings because they are such a centrally located structure. Andy, you got a question?
I don't have a question. I'm Andy Dupuis, community leader over the Dallas and Hermitage area. Folks, if you're over on Old Hickory Boulevard, right there where Kroger's is, right where you come off the interstate, right there at Old Hickory, that little island is also off limits to homeless people. And if you see somebody and you're not able to get a hold of the police department, if you'll email Representative Darren Jernigan, who is the state representative for that area, or for maybe even this area, I think. He can let the state officials know, and they can start, because that is also against, he passed a law just for no homeless to be in that area also.
All right, if y'all have any questions later, just feel free to email me. I've got a card, or if you sign up on my sign-up sheet, I'll have your email. But I'll be happy to give you a card. You can look me up on Facebook. My website's russbradford.com. You can get in touch with me that way as well. So I want to thank Commander Stevens, Sergeant Weaver, the Lieutenant, Judge Jones, and all of our judicial candidates, as well as Ravi, for coming out tonight. And drive safe, everybody.
Thank you, Council.